Dear friends, consider this truth: what you seek is already on its way, prepared by the hand of God, orchestrated in His perfect timing. Often we rush toward our desires as if we could pull them down from heaven by sheer will and might. But the wisdom of God calls us to pause, to breathe, to trust that the Father's goodness is not unlocked by force or haste. He knows the desires of our hearts indeed. He placed them there in harmony with His divine purpose. Divine timing is a concept that reminds us that God's schedule is different from ours, and it unfolds in ways that we may not always understand. Yet this timing is perfect, precise, and purposeful, reflecting God's wisdom beyond our immediate comprehension. At times we become impatient, especially when we have dreams, desires, or goals we long to achieve. In these moments it's easy to think that things aren't happening fast enough. Yet the Scriptures encourage us to wait upon the Lord, for He renews the strength of those who trust in His timing. When we rush ahead, we often overlook the blessings and growth He has placed in each season. The waiting itself serves a purpose. Divine timing teaches us patience, which is a vital part of our spiritual journey. Patience develops our character, allowing us to become people who don't just seek the outcome but also embrace the process. God uses this waiting period to mold us, to strengthen us, and to bring us closer to His heart. In our impatience, we may miss the lessons embedded in the delay. This timing also reveals God's protection. Sometimes we desire things that may not be beneficial for us in the moment. Perhaps if given what we ask for immediately, we wouldn't be ready to receive it. By allowing things to unfold in His time, God shields us from situations we may not yet be prepared to handle. In the waiting, we grow in faith. Faith isn't just believing in the good things to come, it's trusting that the wait itself has value. Divine timing is an invitation to depend on God, even when we cannot see the full picture. This dependence draws us closer to Him, shaping us into individuals who trust not just in the result, but in the giver of all good things. Moreover, divine timing gives us perspective. We often focus so intently on our desires that we miss the broader plan God has for us. His timing allows us to see that life isn't just about what we receive, but about who we become along the way. This perspective brings a sense of peace, knowing that each moment, even in the waiting, is part of a grander design. It's essential to remember that God's timing isn't delayed, it's deliberate. His timing considers not just our immediate desires, but our lifelong purpose. This delay can be uncomfortable, but it assures us that what is meant for us will come, and when it does, it will be right. Trusting in divine timing frees us from the burden of controlling outcomes, allowing us to walk in faith. When we embrace God's timing, we also experience His peace. Instead of striving, we learn to rest in the assurance that He is working on our behalf. This peace is a gift, reminding us that we are held, guided, and cherished by a loving Father. It reassures us that even when nothing seems to be happening, God is moving in unseen ways. Finally, divine timing brings fulfillment. When we receive what God has for us exactly when He intends, it fills us with joy and gratitude. We see that His timing was not just about the when, but also about the who we have become through the journey of waiting and trusting. Embracing divine timing transforms our lives, helping us walk in alignment with God's purpose and in the rhythm of His grace. Faith in God's plan is the steady confidence in a divine path that surpasses our limited understanding. To believe in God's plan is to trust that every circumstance, whether joyful or painful, has a purpose designed to grow us, guide us, and draw us closer to Him. Faith in God's plan requires surrendering control. Often we have our own ideas about how life should unfold, but true faith asks us to lay those plans down and open our hearts to the unexpected. This act of surrender doesn't mean a passive resignation, but a trust that God's perspective is greater, His wisdom deeper, and His plan more complete than anything we could envision. With faith in God's plan, we can face adversity with peace, knowing that trials are not meaningless. Every hardship has a role in refining us, shaping us into stronger, more compassionate people. The valleys may be dark, but faith reminds us that God walks with us through them, turning our struggles into strengths. Faith in God's plan also fosters patience. Human nature leans towards impatience, especially when we are eager to see results or answers. Yet, faith teaches us to trust in God's timing rather than rushing ahead. Patience becomes a beautiful companion to faith, guiding us to wait with hope and to trust that God is aligning all things for our good and His glory. This faith transforms how we approach our desires. Instead of clinging to specific outcomes, we hold our wishes with open hands, asking for God's will above all. Our desires become less about achieving worldly success and more about aligning with God's purpose for our lives. Faith shapes our heart's posture to desire what God desires. In the face of uncertainty, faith in God's plan is our anchor. When life feels chaotic or aimless, faith reminds us that we are not wandering without purpose. Even if we cannot see the path, we know that God is guiding each step. This assurance grounds us, helping us find stability amidst the storms. Faith in God's plan also teaches us resilience. When we trust in His plan, we learn to bounce back from setbacks with hope and determination. We know that each setback, each disappointment, is a step toward something greater. This perspective enables us to endure difficulties with strength, knowing that God is building our character for the journey ahead. Faith allows us to live with gratitude in the present. When we trust that God has a plan, we begin to see each day as a gift rather than just a stepping stone to a future goal. We find joy in the small blessings, appreciating what God has provided instead of constantly seeking what we lack. This faith in God's plan brings us closer to Him. As we trust Him, we find ourselves in deeper communion with God, growing in prayer, reflection, and spiritual maturity. Faith builds an intimacy with our Creator that transcends any earthly achievement or temporary pleasure. When we have faith in God's plan, we also inspire others. Our lives become a testimony of peace, resilience, and hope that speaks to those around us. Others may see our quiet confidence and desire the same, leading them to seek the source of our strength in God. Finally, faith in God's plan frees us from fear. We no longer need to fear the unknown, for we know the one who holds the future. This freedom allows us to live boldly, stepping into the life God has prepared for us without hesitation or dread. Faith gives us the courage to fully embrace His plan, knowing it leads to a life richer, fuller, and more meaningful than we could ever create on our own. Patience in waiting is a spiritual discipline that challenges us to trust deeply, let go of control, and lean into God's timing rather than our own. Often, waiting feels difficult because it goes against our natural inclination to seek immediate results or answers. Yet, patience in waiting teaches us to embrace stillness, to find peace in God's presence, and to understand that delay is not denial. In our waiting, we learn to surrender. Instead of pushing for our own outcomes, patience invites us to lay our desires at God's feet and trust that He will bring forth what is best in His perfect timing. It is an act of humility, acknowledging that God's wisdom surpasses our understanding and that His plans are far more complete than ours. Patience in waiting builds resilience within us. Each moment of waiting, though challenging, strengthens our endurance and resolve. We learn to bear the weight of uncertainty without losing hope. Rather than giving up, we find new strength to persevere, knowing that God is with us in the waiting, shaping us through it. This patience refines our character. As we wait, God molds us, working in areas of our hearts that may need transformation. We may be refined in areas of pride, impatience, or fear, learning to respond with greater grace and humility. The process reveals our weaknesses and invites us to depend on God's strength. In waiting, we grow in faith. Patience stretches our ability to believe in God's promises, even when we cannot see the outcome. With each passing day, our faith is tested and purified, helping us to trust in God's unseen work. Our spiritual eyes open, allowing us to rest in His promises and find comfort in His faithfulness. Patience in waiting helps us appreciate the present. Often we are so focused on future outcomes that we overlook the blessings of today. Patience teaches us to find joy in the present moment, recognizing the beauty of life as it unfolds. We learn to see God's hand in the here and now rather than solely focusing on what lies ahead. Through waiting, we develop compassion for others. Experiencing the struggle of patience makes us more empathetic to those who are also in seasons of waiting. We become encouragers, sharing hope and understanding with others. Our shared experiences remind us of the strength found in community and mutual support. Patience also cultivates gratitude within us. When we wait for something deeply desired, we develop a greater appreciation for it when it finally comes to pass. We value God's gifts more deeply, recognizing them as blessings rather than mere expectations. Gratitude becomes a natural response to God's generosity and provision. Patience in waiting teaches us to surrender our timing to God's divine plan. We learn that God's timing is purposeful, not arbitrary. What may feel like delay is, in truth, a preparation period. God's timing is orchestrated with precision, designed to align us with His will and prepare us fully for the blessings He intends to give. In waiting, we find strength in prayer. Patience pushes us to seek God more intimately, deepening our prayer life and reliance on Him. Prayer becomes our sanctuary, a place where we can pour out our desires, fears, and hopes, entrusting them to God's care. This time of communion with God brings peace and strength. Finally, patience in waiting builds our confidence in God's love. When we wait with patience, we remind ourselves that God is not indifferent to our desires. Rather, He is actively involved in our lives, lovingly orchestrating each detail. Our patience is an expression of trust that, no matter the outcome, God's love will sustain and guide us, bringing us into a future shaped by His goodness. Detachment from anxiety is a profound journey of faith, trust, and spiritual resilience. This detachment is not about ignoring our worries or pretending they don't exist, but rather about surrendering them to God and embracing His peace that surpasses all understanding. Learning to detach from anxiety requires us to change how we view control, release our expectations, and truly believe that God is sovereign over every detail of our lives. Anxiety often comes from our attachment to specific outcomes. We worry because we fear things may not go as planned, or that circumstances won't unfold in a way that we feel secure. But to detach from this fear is to step back and recognize that our security is in God alone. He knows what we need, and His ways are higher than ours. When we shift our trust from ourselves to Him, anxiety begins to lose its grip on our hearts. In the process of detachment, we learn that worry adds nothing of value to our lives. Jesus reminds us in the Scriptures, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life?" This powerful reminder shows us that anxiety consumes time and energy, yet yields nothing positive. To detach from it, we must recognize that worrying does not solve our problems, and instead it takes our focus away from God's provision and power. Detaching from anxiety means choosing faith over fear. Anxiety often arises when we imagine all the things that could go wrong. But when we trust God, we choose to imagine what He could do in every situation. Instead of focusing on potential hardships, we look for His hand at work, believing that He is able to bring good even out of challenging circumstances. This shift from fear to faith transforms our perspective and helps us detach from anxious thoughts. This detachment also involves releasing the illusion of control. Much of our anxiety comes from trying to control situations and outcomes, but the truth is, control is often an illusion. We cannot foresee every detail or prevent every problem, and that is why trusting in God's sovereignty is so essential. When we acknowledge that He is ultimately in control, we can release our need to manage every aspect of our lives, resting instead in His perfect plan. Detachment from anxiety brings us into a deeper relationship with God through prayer. When we feel anxious, prayer becomes a place to hand over our worries, leaving them in God's capable hands. Through prayer, we practice releasing our concerns to Him, asking for His peace to replace our unease. This act of surrender in prayer reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles and that we have a loving Father who cares for us deeply. As we detach from anxiety, we also begin to experience more peace in the present moment. Anxiety often pulls us into an unknown future, but God invites us to live in the now where His grace is sufficient. By detaching from future fears, we become more aware of God's blessings and presence in the present. We learn to appreciate the moment, finding joy in today, rather than becoming consumed by worries about tomorrow. In learning to detach, we also develop a new understanding of patience. Anxiety often tempts us to rush, to seek immediate answers, or to resolve uncertainties quickly. But as we release our anxieties, we learn the virtue of waiting on God. Patience becomes a way of trusting that He will work in His perfect timing, and this patience brings a calm that dispels anxiety. Through patience, we see that God's timing is always purposeful, and that we can rest in His care. Detaching from anxiety requires a commitment to renewing our minds. Anxiety can create patterns of fearful or negative thinking, which we must actively replace with truth. By meditating on God's promises, we shift our focus away from worries and onto His faithfulness. Scriptures that remind us of His goodness, protection, and provision become anchors that hold us steady. In renewing our minds, we begin to train ourselves to think in alignment with God's truth, loosening anxiety's hold. Detachment also includes a humble acceptance of life's uncertainties. To live without anxiety, we must embrace that life will not always be predictable or certain. We are reminded that God is with us even when we don't have all the answers. Rather than striving for certainty in every situation, we grow in faith that God will lead us one step at a time. This acceptance helps us release our fears, trusting that He will guide us through every unknown. Another aspect of detaching from anxiety is focusing on gratitude. Gratitude shifts our attention from what we fear to what we have already received. When we count our blessings, we see God's provision and love woven through our lives. Gratitude fills our hearts with appreciation, making less room for anxiety. As we make gratitude a daily practice, we build a mindset that trusts God's goodness, reducing our inclination to worry about what we lack. Detachment from anxiety also cultivates a sense of inner strength. When we let go of fear, we find a resilient spirit within us that has been strengthened by God. Instead of being easily shaken by circumstances, we stand firm in faith. This inner strength becomes our source of peace, allowing us to face challenges without being overwhelmed. We begin to realize that with God's help, we are capable of navigating difficulties without succumbing to anxiety. As we detach from anxiety, we become more compassionate toward others who may be struggling with similar fears. The journey of releasing anxiety softens our hearts and makes us more understanding of others' burdens. We learn to comfort, encourage, and support one another in a way that reflects God's love. This compassion deepens our relationships and reminds us of the strength found in community. Detaching from anxiety is a journey, not an instant change. It requires patience, practice, and continual surrender. There may be moments when anxiety still tries to creep in, but each time we choose to trust God instead, we take another step toward lasting peace. We begin to see that detaching from anxiety is not only possible, but it leads us into a richer, fuller life grounded in God's love. Finally, detachment from anxiety brings us to a place of true freedom in Christ. Jesus invites us to cast our burdens upon Him, to let go of what weighs us down, and to rest in His peace. When we detach from anxiety, we accept this invitation, allowing Christ to fill us with a peace that surpasses all understanding. This peace becomes the foundation of our lives, a constant reminder that we are held by the One who loves us completely. Inner peace serves as a profound compass for our lives, guiding us through life's storms and uncertainties with a sense of calm and clarity that no external circumstance can shake. It's a kind of inner compass that directs us toward what is true, just, and meaningful, aligning our hearts with God's will. When we cultivate inner peace, we tap into a deep well of strength and wisdom that provides guidance even when our minds are clouded with doubt or fear. Finding inner peace begins with surrendering control and recognizing that we don't have to bear every burden on our own. Many times our inner turmoil arises because we're trying to control outcomes or circumstances that are beyond our reach. When we trust that God is in control and that His plans are good, we open ourselves to a peace that comes from faith, not from having everything figured out. This surrender allows our inner peace to point us in the right direction, helping us to make decisions with a calm heart. Inner peace as a compass is rooted in a deep relationship with God. Peace grows in us as we spend time in prayer, meditate on Scripture, and align our desires with His. As we draw near to Him, our anxieties diminish, and our confidence in His wisdom grows. This relationship becomes a strong foundation, allowing peace to guide us even in challenging moments. When we are close to God, we feel His calming presence, and this peace becomes the compass that guides our actions. This inner peace is not just an absence of conflict, it's an active sense of contentment and trust in God's plan. It doesn't mean that we won't face difficulties, but that we can walk through them without losing our center. When we hold on to this peace, we respond to challenges with grace rather than anxiety. Even when life feels chaotic, this peace reminds us that God is our refuge, and His peace guards our hearts and minds like a steady anchor. One of the most valuable aspects of inner peace is the way it helps us to discern truth. Often, we are faced with decisions or opinions that pull us in different directions. When we tune into our inner peace, we can distinguish between choices that bring us closer to God and those that lead us away from Him. This inner peace gives us a sense of rightness or wrongness, helping us to make choices that honor our values and align with our faith. This peace also helps us to remain steady in the face of criticism or external pressure. When we rely on inner peace as our compass, we become less swayed by the opinions of others. Instead of seeking validation from the world, we find our worth in God's love and truth. This gives us a kind of resilience that allows us to walk confidently in our purpose, even if it means standing alone. Inner peace enables us to stay true to who God created us to be. Inner peace as a compass brings clarity to our goals and aspirations. When our hearts are at peace, we're able to discern which pursuits bring true fulfillment and which ones are distractions. Often we chase things that we think will bring happiness, but that ultimately leave us feeling empty. When we align ourselves with God's peace, our desires shift toward things of lasting value, guiding us toward a life of purpose rather than mere success or temporary satisfaction. This inner peace fosters patience within us, helping us to trust in God's timing. When we feel hurried or pressured, we're more likely to make impulsive decisions that lead to regret. But when we are guided by peace, we can wait without anxiety, trusting that God's timing is perfect. This patience allows us to move at a pace that is steady and intentional, making decisions from a place of calm confidence rather than fear. Inner peace as a compass also empowers us to face uncertainty without despair. Life will always have unknowns, and we will encounter seasons where the path is unclear. In these times, peace reassures us that God is already ahead, preparing the way. This inner peace gives us the courage to take one step at a time, trusting that as we move forward, God will illuminate each step we take. This confidence in His guidance helps us to navigate the unknown with courage and hope. When we use inner peace as a compass, we experience a deeper sense of joy that is not dependent on circumstances. This joy flows from a sense of fulfillment in God and His promises. Even when things go wrong or when we face disappointments, the joy that comes from inner peace remains. This joy strengthens us, reminding us that our contentment is found in God's presence rather than in temporary successes or fleeting pleasures. Inner peace also cultivates compassion and understanding toward others. When we are grounded in peace, we're less likely to react with frustration or anger. Instead, we become more patient and empathetic, able to see others through the lens of God's love. This peaceful perspective allows us to respond to conflict with kindness, creating harmony rather than division. In this way, inner peace becomes a compass that not only guides our own lives but also helps us to be a source of peace for others. This peace-driven approach to life gives us greater resilience in facing life's hardships. Peace does not eliminate pain or hardship, but it gives us the strength to endure them without losing hope. When challenges come, we hold on to the assurance that God is with us, and His peace sustains us. This resilience allows us to remain grounded, even when life feels uncertain, guiding us back to faith and hope with every trial we encounter. As a compass, inner peace brings alignment to our thoughts, words, and actions. When we are at peace within ourselves, our actions naturally reflect that harmony. We become more intentional in our relationships, more mindful of our words, and more deliberate in our choices. This alignment not only benefits our personal lives, but also allows us to be a positive influence on those around us. When people see the peace within us, they are drawn to the source of that peace, God Himself. Inner peace teaches us to value simplicity over excess. Often our lives are complicated by our pursuit of more success, more possessions, more recognition. But inner peace helps us to see that true contentment is found not in abundance, but in a heart that is satisfied in God alone. This simplicity frees us from the constant need for more, allowing us to enjoy the blessings we already have. It guides us toward a life that is rich in meaning, not just in material wealth. Finally, inner peace as a compass brings us into closer alignment with God's purpose for our lives. When we are guided by peace, we walk the path He has set for us with confidence and trust. This peace assures us that we are exactly where we need to be, and that God's hand is upon us. It reminds us that every step we take when led by peace brings us closer to fulfilling His plan. With inner peace as our compass, we live not only with purpose, but also with the assurance that we are deeply loved and guided by our Creator. Surrendering to divine will is a journey that requires the letting go of our personal ambitions, anxieties, and the need for control, so that we may be led by God's purpose and grace. In this process, we begin by acknowledging that, although we may plan and strive, ultimate wisdom belongs to God. To surrender is not to forfeit our individuality or desires, but rather to align them with a greater divine purpose that we may not fully comprehend. The first step in surrender is humility. We come to God with the awareness that, despite our efforts, we cannot see the entire picture or understand the intricate design He has laid out. This humility isn't about belittling ourselves, but recognizing our limitations in light of His infinite wisdom. Surrendering in humility means acknowledging that God's plan is not only greater than our own, but often surpasses our understanding. Surrender also requires trust. Trusting in divine will means believing that God's intentions for us are always good, even when we can't see the end. This trust grows when we study the Scriptures and remember His faithfulness to those who came before us. Like Abraham leaving his homeland or Moses leading his people, we learn that obedience to God's will leads to paths of blessing, even if they require courage and patience. Another key to surrendering is releasing our attachment to specific outcomes. We often hold tight to certain dreams, expecting that they will bring us happiness or fulfillment. Surrendering to divine will doesn't mean abandoning our goals. It means being open to the possibility that God's plan might look different than we imagined. When we release our grip on outcomes, we allow God to work in ways that may surprise and even delight us, bringing peace that transcends our understanding. Prayer is an essential practice in the process of surrender. Through prayer, we express our desires and concerns to God, but we also listen for His guidance. In the quiet of prayer, we practice letting go, trusting that God knows what we need even before we ask. Prayer becomes a way to align our hearts with His will, helping us to become receptive to His direction and reassurance. Faith in God's timing is crucial in surrender. Often we expect God to act according to our timeline, becoming frustrated when answers don't come as quickly as we'd like. But surrendering to divine will involves accepting that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our own plans. This faith in His timing strengthens our patience and allows us to wait in hope rather than in anxiety. In surrendering, we also cultivate gratitude. When we are grateful for each moment and every blessing, big or small, we are less likely to be consumed by what we lack. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we think we deserve to what we have been graciously given, making it easier to accept God's will, even when it leads us through difficult seasons. This gratitude acts as a balm, helping us to embrace both the highs and lows of life. Surrendering involves letting go of fear. Many times we resist surrendering because we fear the unknown or worry about loss, but as we surrender, we learn that fear diminishes when we place our faith in God's love and protection. His Word assures us repeatedly that He will never leave us nor forsake us, and this promise becomes a source of courage, allowing us to face the unknown with confidence and calm. Divine surrender requires the daily practice of choosing God's will over our own impulses. This isn't something that happens overnight, but a gradual transformation as we yield our will to His. Each day brings choices, and each choice presents an opportunity to practice surrender. Over time, these small acts of surrender add up, reshaping our character and aligning us more closely with God's purpose. The journey of surrender also refines our understanding of success and failure. We come to see that true success isn't defined by worldly achievements or the approval of others, but by obedience to God. In surrender, we learn to value spiritual growth over external accomplishments, realizing that even setbacks and struggles can be part of God's refining work in us, drawing us closer to Him. In surrendering to divine will, we also find freedom. At first, surrender might feel like a loss of control, but as we learn to trust God, we experience a liberating release from the need to manage every detail. Surrender brings a peace that frees us from constant striving, allowing us to live fully in the present, confident that God holds our future. Our relationships benefit from our surrender to divine will as well. When we yield to God, we become less focused on our own needs and more attuned to the needs of others. This surrender fosters empathy, patience, and love in our interactions, allowing us to serve others as God intended. Our surrender to His will is evident in the kindness and compassion we show to those around us. Surrender also deepens our resilience. When we submit to God's plan, we become anchored in His strength rather than our own. This anchor sustains us in life's storms, reminding us that we are held by one who is greater than any challenge we face. Through surrender, we build a resilience that isn't shaken by circumstances, but is rooted in God's unwavering support. In times of doubt or difficulty, surrender keeps us close to God. Rather than turning away in frustration, surrender draws us closer to Him, seeking His presence as a source of comfort and wisdom. In these moments, we find that surrender isn't just about yielding to God's will, it's about being embraced by His love and experiencing His care in the midst of trials. True surrender to divine will ultimately transforms our hearts, aligning our desires with God's. As we practice surrender, our will gradually becomes one with His, and we begin to desire what He desires. This transformation doesn't come through force, but through a deepening relationship with God. As we know Him more, our love for Him grows, and surrender becomes a natural expression of that love. Surrendering to divine will is an act of worship. When we yield our lives to God, we honor Him as Lord and acknowledge His sovereignty over all things. This act of worship brings joy as we come to see that our lives are part of a larger divine story. In surrender, we find fulfillment, purpose, and a deep sense of belonging to God's eternal plan. In the end, surrender to divine will is the path to true peace and joy. It is in surrender that we find rest from the endless striving of the world, discovering that we are fully loved and accepted by God. As we release our plans and embrace His, we come to know a life that is rich, purposeful, and deeply satisfying. Through surrender, we live in harmony with the Creator, and this, above all, is the greatest blessing.
I know you think you're the man of the hour. I know you think I'm a delicate flower, but I'm here to tell you I'ma take back the power. I like to dip my fries in sweet and sour. Bring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies. Doctor gave you diagnosis, turns out you're just hella nosy. You're always in my business, but this ain't a floral shop. I wish you would begonia, but you never seem to stop. So why don't you mind your own? You've been in the class too long. You singing the same damn song, time for you to move along. I like to dip my fries in sweet and sour. I know you think you're the man of the hour. I know you think I'm a delicate flower, but I'm here to tell you I'ma take back the power. I like to dip my fries in sweet and sour. Why you stressing all the time? Stop and give the roses a smell. There's so much more to life than trying to give everybody hell. You used to make me laugh a little, you used to be so silly. Now one day you're a daffodil, the next day you're a lily. Your two lips sure do a lot of flap. You should close them like a Venus flytrap. I don't wanna hear what you said. I don't want your weeds in my bed. I like to dip my fries in sweet and sour. I know you think you're the man of the hour. I know you think I'm a delicate flower, but I'm here to tell you I'ma take back the power. I like to dip my fries in sweet and sour. Why you stressing all the time? Stop and give the roses a smell. There's so much more to life than trying to give everybody hell. You used to make me laugh a little, you used to be so silly. Now one day you're a daffodil, the next day you're a lily. Your two lips sure do a lot of flap. You should close them like a Venus flytrap. I don't wanna hear what you said. I don't want your weeds in my bed. I like to dip my fries in sweet and sour. I know you think you're the man of the hour. I know you think I'm a delicate flower, but I'm here to tell you I'ma take back